Hi there folks, my name's NovaWing24 and welcome today to next in my little reviews of various FSX add-ons. Today we are going to be looking at a Just Flight creation. It's been out a little while, but you know what, I really want to review it because I have always loved this aeroplane. So in case you haven't already guessed and figured it out folks, this is the absolutely beautiful de Havilland Comet 4C. An absolute beautiful and revolutionary airliner. In fact, it is actually the world's first jetliner, commercial jetliner that was ever actually produced. So, yeah, pretty damn amazing, I think. And yeah, it is an absolutely spectacular aircraft to look at. And you know what? We're gonna see what, now that we're seeing what she looks like. We're also gonna see how she flies. But yeah, no, I really wanted. This is something I've been wanting to pick up for a while, and I picked this up. This is of course the Just Flight one. I picked this up a few days ago, and you know what? I've been having a lot of fun with it. It is absolutely incredible. So, alright, well, I'm on with the review, I suppose. So, first of all, as we always do, we're going to have a quick look at the external modelling. By the way, folks, in case you're wondering, the airport we're currently at is from Orbx collection. So this is Yankee Bravo Charlie Sierra, or Cairns International Airport. So, yeah, nice little add-on for your Australian activities. So, there you go. Anyway, so yeah, this is the Just Flight Comet 4C. So this is the final production variant of the de Havilland Comet. So the de Havilland Comet, as I said, was the world's first commercial airliner. And just looking at these sort of beautiful flowing lines that the Comet has, it is pretty damn amazing and beautiful to look at. It really is, and it's something that, you know, new aircraft, you know, it just don't have. It has this air of luxury about it, and that's something that's pretty cool. So the texture quality is pretty amazing, and we can see sort of the sun reflecting off the aircraft, and it's all metal and skin, and that's a pretty beautiful thing to behold. And it's definitely a very nice, detailed and animated. There's quite a few animations that have been placed in as usual from Just Flight. They do have a sort of a full complement of ground start equipment and air stairs and all that kind of fun stuff as well, all controlled from a switch in the cockpit. So yeah, the external modelling and textures is pretty damn incredible, like right down to the noise baffles that are on the actual engines that you can see here. So it was actually by today's standards, it was incredibly noisy and you know, sort of quite loud, but for standards of the day, it was incredibly quiet, and it was actually marketed by BOAC as the vibration-free way to fly, which is a pretty significant sort of thing to say at the time, especially when most passengers would be used to sort of turboprop, or was not even turboprop, piston aircraft that sort of rattled and clunked along, and having the smooth flowing abilities of the Comet was a real revolution to passengers. So, alright, so that's sort of a little overview of the outside textures. The paint the livery, sorry, that we're actually flying today is, has been described as the world's first ever Bizjet. So this was one of the last models, one of the last of the production run of the Comet 4C, not just one of the last model, but also one of the last ones made. It was ostensibly originally bought by Royal Saudi Air, but it was actually ended up being used exclusively for the use of the King of Saudi Arabia as his private jet. So it was fitted with a bedroom and a extensive galley and gold fittings throughout all the amenities and all the bathrooms. So yeah, it was a pretty awesome deal. So alright, so that's our exterior sort of view looked at there. So let's now jump into the cockpit. Alright, so I'm gonna to turn the sound down quite a bit here, because as I was saying, although at the time it was quiet, yeah, they capture how loud it really is very well. So yeah, have to have the video. This it is quite a thing to experience. Oh, cup holder, I didn't see that before. The first thing that you notice when you get into the cockpit is how much stuff is here. Like, it is pretty daunting actually seeing all the gauges and stuff like this and the way they're sort of put up. Yeah, I mean it's not so bad for us who are sort of used to seeing a more modern cockpit. But transitioning from something like, you know, locking constellations or DC-6s and stuff like that, and aircraft such as those types into this, it's absolutely mind-blowing how much stuff is actually here. And that was a feature right from the first production Comets. It really did have this amazing array of sort of switches and stuff. Almost all of which actually do work, so pretty damn important. So let's probably quickly flick on our lights while we're here. So yeah, the outstanding array is quite incredible. You got your sort of radar radios up there, and the Comet 2 and the Comet 4C, one of the first ones to actually introduce radar into actual commercial aircraft. So for example, you have a little display down here. So essentially it's a rudimentary TCAS. And it was actually brought in and is featured as part of the aircraft, and it had sort of very early uses of weather radar and stuff like that actually in it, and which is something that was pretty revolutionary at the time. So, alright, so as I was saying, folks, it's this astounding array of switches. It is a very it can be quite a challenging aircraft to fly, but yeah, pretty. I just think it's pretty damn amazing, I really do. Alright, so you got your basic sort of cockpit, you got your basic sort of gauges you see everywhere here. Your BLCSI, you got your ILS stuff, which is still a fairly new sort of thing at the time. Alright, let's have a look around now. We've got the co-pilot view as well. So very similar sort of repeated displays over there. Also where you can control all the ground animations as well, so... Then we've got the overhead panel. Now this is of course, it had a crew of 4, the Comet, so the Comet had a crew of 4. Now this was the flight engineers station, which definitely had all the sort of, all the gauges, knobs and switches and all that kind of fun stuff there. So and all your fuel flow gauges. So the 9 fuel tanks featured on the 4C, so it all had to be balanced and all that kind of fun stuff as well. And then of course there was the navigator's position. So the navigator had a full chart table. None of this GPS rubbish or anything like that for our Comet navigator. So there was navigation radios and stuff like that there. And this little beauty. So yes, it was still fitted with a Morse code device. Yes, it still was an important part of navigation back then. And although we may not sort of know Morse code much anymore, it is still used to this day as an important piece of navigation. So for those younger pilots out there, if you've ever wondered what those beeps and tweaks and sounds are that when you tune into your nav frequencies and your ILS and stuff like that, that's called Morse code. Yeah, it's a pretty fundamental way of communicating. So alright, so now we've got a couple of really cool internal views. We've got our lovely stewardess there, all decked out in her livery for serving the royal prince. Alright, and then just like a bit of a exterior view there. So there we are. Well, I think that's enough of me sort of rabbiting around on the tarmac. I think we should probably push back and taxi down to the end of the runway and actually start think about putting this beautiful beautiful aircraft into the air and go for a bit of a circuit. So alright, so just on our bit of our pushback there. I'm going to switch to the external view for a moment because, yeah, as I said, it is such a beautiful aeroplane. It really is, and oh, just looks amazing. This is sort of like a bit of almost like a forgotten era of flight sometimes, I think, with this. It really was it's a bygone era of travel. That's something that we don't see as much anymore, I think. Yeah, I think we potentially will see it come back again one day, but in the short term at least, this is going to be it's going to be close. We're going to get to this kind of luxury of travel. So, all right. So we'll finish our pushback there. Jump into cockpit. All right. These slowly moving. So taxiing down. Yeah, it's just pretty damn amazing. Like, as I was saying, you get that feeling of flying in a bygone era. You do. So yes, the Comet was a sort of, it really reflects. It's a bit like the TSR2. It really reflects sort of the British aviation industry quite well. It was almost always too little, too late. Well, not too little, too late, but too much, too early. So the design, as the world's first ever commercial jet aircraft, the Comet really just it didn't break all the rules. It rewrote them. They were entering completely unheard of territory as they were actually sort of creating the Comet and actually doing things for it. So whole new methodologies of construction were pioneered just in the design of the Comet, let alone the production of it. So that was just a pretty incredible feat of engineering by itself. And the sad reality is unfortunately being when you're the first to do something, it doesn't always work out for the best. So very famously, very tragic accidents as part of its sort of early life did very much negatively impact on its future. So there was, in the first sort of few years of operation, it initially seemed like it was going to be an incredible commercial success. At the time it was competing against piston engine aircraft that would take days and days and days to reach sort of long haul destinations, and they were limited by their altitude and their engines, so they often had to they'd have to plow through weather rather than having to be able to. I mean, we're used to these days of just soaring above clouds and being able to sort of sit back in comfort and relax, but in the days sort of in this era, in sort of the 50s, commercial airline travel was essentially pretty much still very much World War II technology, and sort of many converted bombers were sort of converted to transport aircraft, and very much that design philosophy. So aircraft had to plow through weather, and they didn't have the engine power or the altitude abilities to actually be able to fly above them. Whereas the Comet revolutionized that idea by actually going, well, no, we're able to actually fly above all that guff and actually be able to be more efficient. So it actually had its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, and that was pretty much unheard of at the time. So it was definitely a very revolutionary aircraft. And they went through a whole sort of, and they had to figure out ways of how to test the aircraft and things like that going into that, and that was something that was quite frankly pioneering. It was absolutely, as I said, unheard of. Right, so quickly check my airport layout. We're just coming to the end. We'll go a little bit further and then we'll taxi on to the end of the runway. It's just magnificent looking at it, isn't it? It's just absolutely incredible. it's like Concorde. It sends shivers down your spine. It really, really does. Just even just looking at it. So, all right. So as we sort of taxi along here, brakes on. Here, oh, might be a bit fast. That's all right. Taxi out onto our runway. Taxi and line up, and then we'll do a look at those mountains there. We might do a right-hand circuit today, I think. We'll drop our flaps ready for takeoff. Alright. And off we go. And lit it off centerline, that's all good. Left rudder to keep us straight. Alright. And then up she comes. Gear coming up. Just absolutely magnificent. Like, as I said, like, at the time she was considered quite quiet. Now we would consider this incredibly loud, but yeah, absolutely beautiful. So yeah, the Comet yeah, had that sort of, it definitely considered both a triumph and a tragedy. It's, as I said, it because it was the first of its kind, it really sort of rewrote the book on how to actually design and actually sort of do, how airliners of the future would actually be designed. So that alone was an incredible achievement, but it was a case of unfortunately that also meant that there were a lot of lessons that had to be learnt that perhaps that would be learnt and incorporated into other aircraft of the future, but at the time would actually mean that she was very much a pioneer of her time. And the sad result of that is that when you are the first to sort of do things, that sometimes things don't go the way that you planned them to go. And sadly, yeah, there were some very, very famous accidents with the Comet and the early Comet 1s and the 1As. Now, they ended up being initially sort of attributed to pilot error or to weather. In the end, it actually was due mostly to metal fatigue. It's a concept that was very much not understood and very not very well understood in any way, shape or form initially, and it meant that it was a whole new field that had to be looked at and had to be examined for actually what was important about it and what was going on. So the initial inquiries to the sort of first events, didn't even consider metal fatigue as a possible cause of the issues that were going on. And it wasn't until, sadly, a third aircraft actually had broken up and a second inquiry had been launched that was even really sort of considered that metal fatigue could be something to do with it. the result is that the original Copper ones were actually designed with square windows. Now, square windows had just been the way it had been done. That's how it was, and hatches and everything were square. There was none of this round stuff. It was all very squared and easy to produce and all that kind of stuff. However, what was not realised is that when you're sort of going at very high speed and you're doing fairly rapid pressurization and depressurizations, as you would change altitude, and as they were doing a lot of with the Comet, it actually meant that the fatigue of the metal actually was significantly more than had ever really been experienced, and it was an unknown quantity. And despite all their best efforts in the initial sort of viewing of the pressure testing and the structural testing that they did, it wasn't enough. It sadly was not enough, and it meant that they didn't realise and didn't determine that there was problems, or problems could develop from the mixture of new and old production methods for building this aircraft. There was a sort of mixture of the old style sort of punch riveting and being rivet counters and stuff like that, whereas with new alloys and epoxy resins and things like that. So very much a mix of production methods and sort of new and old sort of merging together, and the impacts that would have, and whole new alloys were created just for the Comet. The fact that it would happen to have such high speeds and high friction ratios and stuff like that it would have to deal with. So all this was very much a learning curve, and something that was very much a first of its kind and kind of thing. So yeah, the eventual, it was actually fascinating how they eventually did it. Well, after the third loss of an aircraft, the BOAC, the primary operator of it, actually donated an identical airframe to one of the ones that had been lost to the RAE at Farnborough, for them to actually conduct their testing on. And a full, the biggest at the time, the biggest sort of water pressure testing tank in history at the time, and I think possibly even to this day actually, was actually created so they could actually encompass the entire airframe. So they could actually pressure test the entire airframe as one, and not just components of it. And what that ended up leading to was actually discovered that the source of the issues was actually a depressurization, because the metal fatigued around the square corners of a escape hatch that was actually built into the top of the fuselage, and that sort of failure point meant that the aircraft suffered a catastrophic pressure failure, which essentially just broke up in mid-air. But it was only through this sort of research and the sad loss of lives that we were actually able to do that. And what that has now done is that has now made air travel for all of us, so the air travel that we take for granted, are so much safer. And the competitors to de Havilland and the British aircraft industry, so Douglas and Boeing, learnt a great deal from the tragedies and the investigations into the Comet, because they were able to go, okay, we are not going to make things with square windows anymore, we're going to make them with round, because the round proved to be more resilient to actual pressure environments and things like that. So, but despite all that, the Comet had a sterling long career, as we sort of drift in on the. She's just so steady. It really is. Like, I'm not using ILS or anything here, or any of this fancy sort of things to do my approach on. I'm just sticking this down. So. Isn't she beautiful? Alright, just correct on the runway a bit there, just drifting off to the side of it. I'm just enjoying the visuals too much, I think. Alright. Just coming over the threshold. Oh, too much correction. It'll teach me for not paying attention to what I'm flying when I'm too busy talking to you lot. Alright. Here we come. Oh, don't mind bad landing, folks. That's not the fault of the model, that's just the fault of my flying. Don't mind that, folks. Alright, and she does have, you know, she was a pioneer with reverse thrusting as well. It was very much a pioneer. As I said, there was a lot of major innovations went into the Comet, and things that we still have with us to this day. And yeah, it's just, as I said, it was a founding aircraft and a real pioneer for what it was doing, and something that. Yeah, it really represents a watershed in aviation and commercial aviation, and yeah, without the Comet, we would not have many of the safety features, or there would have been much delayed getting a lot of the safety that we take, as I said, that we take for granted every day when we fly now. So, the other thing, folks, yeah, as we'll sort of just taxi away for now, but. Yeah, despite all its initial setbacks and the introduction of, you know, the 707 and the DC-9 and stuff like that, and, you know, its other sort of main competitors that, you know, learnt from the Comet's early problems and actually presented a more viable alternative. The Comet had a sterling history. So as I said, its first flight was in 1949. Its first entered service in 1956 with BOAC. It would actually go on in commercial service. It would actually fly on until 1981. The last commercial flight was actually in 1981. So it's, you know, flew for quite a number of years with its 4 Rolls-Royce Avon turbojets. But its last flight, it actually was still operating right up until 1997. So in 1990s, well into the 90s, the Royal Air Force actually operated several of these in VIP transport and meteorological and sort of testbed roles. And the last ever operational flight of a Comet 4C was in 1981. So yeah, it was quite a momentous aircraft, and it did quite the sterling service over the years. So, also, for anyone who is familiar with the lines of the Comet or a Comet, and sort of recognise that sort of, you know, the engines built into the wing roots, and sort of the design of the tall tail and things like that. If that seems familiar to anybody else even beyond 1981. That would be because the Comet was the basis for the very, very famous British maritime patrol aircraft, the Hawker Siddeley Nimrod. De Havilland, as part of a British government sort of nationalisation sort of program, pushed a lot of the British aircraft manufacturers together into sort of one. Into sort of, you know, smaller number of companies, but sort of amalgamated them all together, and it actually became a wholly owned subsidiary of Hawker Siddeley, which actually used the Comet as its basis for the Nimrod, which went on to serve right up until 2011. So the Comet, in its military guise, was soldiered on for many, many years. Essentially, really, it's with its first flight in 1949. It's soldiered on for over 60 years after its sort of initial flight. So even then, it was very much a flying piece of history. So there we go. Well, folks, as we've now landed back at Cairns International Airport after my rather poor landing, I do apologise for that, folks, but. I guess time for a final wrap up as I park here at the ramp. What do I think of it? Wow. This is history. It really, really is absolutely a piece of history. It is an incredible thing. The Comet. It really is. And if you're into any kind of aviation history at all, I would strongly recommend that you at least consider this. And if you're into your virtual airlines, it gives you something a little bit different to actually sort of fly around with as well. Because as I said, this is a golden age of aviation that, quite frankly, we will never see again, or if we do, it will be quite some time before we do. So, flight dynamic wise, it seems pretty good from all the reference and the videos that I've seen. She seems to handle exactly as advertised, as the original, the actual real life Comet 4C flies and handles. Definitely seems to be the right thing. As much as I did to say at the start of the video that I'd love the textures, I do have a couple of slight issues. You can probably see here around the windows, they don't quite line up. And look, I know I'm nitpicking, I know it's a small thing, but yeah, Just Flight, you've produced some amazing payware. That's a little disappointing, I'll be honest. And it's not just this texture pack that does this, it is unfortunately across all of the lines. So that was disappointing, I think, is probably the best way to say it. So, but yeah. Anyway, folks, do I recommend it? Look, it is not for everyone. It does not have all the ease of modern navigation kind of things. So if you're expecting to be able to just fly it on GPS, you need to know your more traditional types of navigation. So your VOR, your NDB navigation. You need to know that if you want to fly this. But if you want to give it the time and you want to see and experience this golden age of aviation, you could do a lot worse. Put it that way. You can really do a lot worse. And for the most part, the detail that Just Flight have gone to has really paid off. And overall, I am a very, very happy customer, and I would definitely, at least guys, at least have a look at it and seriously consider it, because I've been looking for quite some time for a quality Comet, and I am so glad I picked this one up. I picked it up on a whim, and you know what? I am very happy with it. I'm sort of pestering the guys over at msflights.net to actually add this as part of their VA, because I think that would be an incredible addition. So there you go. Anyway, folks, that's me wrapped up and done for today. So I just want to say a quick shout out. So thank you very much to Just Flight for producing this aircraft. Thank you to Orbx for producing Cairns International. I sort of used to spend a bit of time up there in far north Queensland, so yeah, nice, pretty cool. So yeah, there you go. Alright, folks, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video and you want to see some more things come through the channel. I will be reviewing some more things from Just Flight in the coming weeks as well, so stay tuned for that one. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the channel, as I said before, and also as always, we are on Facebook and on Twitter now, so the links will be in the description down below. Alright, folks, well, thank you very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.